Welcome back to Haunting Travels. I'm Alex, and tonight we have a truly fascinating guest joining us. Jay Hill is a multi talented creator who wears many hats. He's the
Mhm.
founder of Studio Six Media, host of four different podcasts covering everything from the paranormal to music, a practicing a psychic medium, and a paranormal investigator. But what really excites me is his current passion project, creating documentaries about unknown historical locations and people that history has forgotten about. He's currently raising funds for his documentary, Shadows Behind History, which aims to uncover stories that deserve to be told. Jay, welcome to Haunting Travels.
Thank you for having me. I
What in,
appreciate it.
what inspired you to create Studio Six Media, and how do you manage to producing four different podcasts simultaneously?
Oh, um, so it started out with a podcast. I was a guest. Actually, this was probably 5, 6 years ago. Um, Somebody, excuse me, asked to be on a podcast, and that would have been my first one. And I was like, okay, because I was just getting into getting noticed a little bit more in the paranormal then, and so I did, and being the first time I was ever on a podcast, and it was kind of it was different, and it was fun. But the one thing I did notice is there were too many open air dead spots in there, and it was kind of hard for me to answer questions because it was like it just seemed a little unorganized, and so I was like, huh, okay. So after I got done with that podcast, I thought maybe I want to do this. I think I can do this better. And then the spirit said to me, well, then why don't you? And so I was like, okay. So I thought about it. About a week later, um, I saw an ad on Facebook for a co-host for a paranormal show that this gentleman was part of another paranormal podcast that his host just up and left and kind of left him high and dry. And he was looking for a new host or new co-host and whatnot. And so I thought, what are the odds of that? And so I contacted him, and he was like, super cool guy. And I thought, yeah, I'm all in for this. And he said, yeah, he said, but really, he kind of flipped the script on me. He said, because he's like, yeah, I had in the ad that I was looking for a co-host, but actually I'm just looking for somebody to be the host and to run the whole thing. I'm like, oh, so me thinking that I was just going to be a co-host, starting getting my feet wet into podcasting, here I am shoved into the limelight where I was controlling everything. And I was like, oh, okay. So we decided that would be the best course of action. And so I took the reins and I created Studio Six Paranormal Podcast, and he was my co-host, and I did all the artwork, I did all the editing, I did all the everything, and advertisement, promos, and we just started. Um, we started out in a haunted hotel. Actually, I knew the owner, and I said, "Hey, um, do you want to? Will you allow me to do my new podcast here in your hotel?" And the owner said, "Sure," and she set me upstairs in the office, and I was there for about a year and a half, and I had a lot of great evidence happen live on TV or live on stream, and that was fun. I really liked it. And then they remodeled, and then I kind of got pushed out, and then I had ended up going somewhere else. But I did Studio Six Paranormal podcast with my co-host Shane Feek for almost 2.5, 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, and then I decided to. We decided to end it. We kind of had it's ran its course, and um, I started doing other projects, and I took Studio Six and I named it several different things. It was Studio Six Productions, Studio Six and Entertainment, Studio Six. I mean, I was just like, I was trying to have something that would land halfway decent. I've changed the name a couple different times, and I just always went back to Studio Six just because that's the first thing that came to my mind when I first started podcasting. And so Studio Six Media just thinks it just encompasses all of the shows that I have. You know what I mean? So I started doing other shows, and there's some shows that I had started that didn't last long. And um there were some shows that um really never got off the ground. And I'm always kind of changing what I'm doing, you know. I just had created a couple different podcasts. Last year I did metal music, and which is getting to be pretty successful. I like that one a lot. It's called Metal Freedom Podcast, and I am creating another one, a music one called um, the Record Store. What was it? I just created it. Um, the the Record Store Rock Lounge.
Is your favorite type of genre of music metal?
It's everything now. I mean, I like, Sinatra, 50s crooner music, and I like everything. But when I was growing up, I started on metal. And so, and I see that you're wearing a Megadeth shirt, and I saw them in concert back in 2000. And actually, it was before 2000. It was like 1999.
Oh, really? I would
And
love to see
it
them.
was, yeah, it was on their Cryptic Writings tour, and the Misfits opened up, and it was really good. Yeah. So I like metal music, but I also like heavy metal and just regular rock and roll music. So I created the Record Store Rock Lounge podcast, which I just finished the uh, poster for it, and it came out pretty good. And there's some bands that I really am into that I want to try to get a hold of. The only problem with that is because of the fact that depending on the success of some of these members of bands, big name bands, usually when they appear on podcasts, they want to get paid.
Yeah.
And I don't, I don't charge anybody, and I don't pay for anything because it's all voluntary. I have that disclaimer on when I send them the email to their contact info that, at no time do I levy money to or from the guest. It's all on a voluntary basis. I don't make money doing this. This is just my own thing that I do. And there's some people that have understood that, and some people, don't care. And then they're like, yeah, sure, but then there's other ones where I have another show called Unscripted Reel to Reel, where I interview actors and actresses and people that have been behind the camera and type things. And I just recently sent an email to uh, somebody who has been in movies, major movies, and the first thing they said, they would love to be on the show. What does your budget look like? And I'm like, I had to explain to him, I don't have a budget because I don't charge and I don't pay. And I said, I do this, for myself and for my fans and this and that. And I respectfully said, okay, if this isn't something that you are into, I said, that's, totally fine. I said, I totally understand, but thank you for your time. And I was, nice, and he hearted the message. And so he understood and I understood.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody come across to me, mean or anything like that, or, so as of yet, I haven't.
Well, I'm glad. I haven't had that experience, so, but I have had, where they definitely want to pay, like, have you pay for everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's certain people that I've ran into even in the paranormal world where people who think that they are, I call them para celebrities. you know,
Yeah.
and think that they're all this and that because they've been on TV or a major network for even how long. And um, I won't name names, but I've had one of them that um, treats me not so nice and very disrespectful, and he doesn't like me. He never did. Um, I introduced myself to him a long time ago, and he wouldn't give me the time of day.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it is what it is. I used to go to Paracons, and um, I was actually a sponsor at a Paracon once, and the two people, the other person that I was with for the Cemetery Files podcast I had with her, I paid for pretty much everything the sponsorship and the vendor pays for everything and this and that. So I got a vendor's booth and whole 9 yards, and we didn't even get main floor in this building. We got shoved in the basement.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I was that to me was I was really not happy with, and we kind of complained about it, and nothing was done. And you know, anybody who sponsors an event or who helps sponsor an event with other sponsors should have been on main floor, no matter what. That should have been the first thing. If I'm going to pay $250 for a sponsorship, I would expect to see at least having main floor seating for my vendor's table. But we were stuck in the basement with other people, and not to say anything bad about those other people because they had great tables, but it just wasn't something that I thought was quite fair. But it is what it is. I won't name the place and I won't say who it is, but I'm just
Can
there's so
you
many different things on that.
can you share how you discovered your abilities as a psychic medium?
um I've always had them. um I was born with them. I didn't experience. I was always into the paranormal, and I tell people this too: is that I was, not that I was always into paranormal. The paranormal was always into me, you know. And so, having said that, um, I had a fascination with the paranormal, and my first book. I like to read, and my first book I read was I was third grade. And there was a book called Ghosts by Daniel Cohen, and it was a blue cover, and it was an older book, and it had great ghost stories in it. And I was just fascinated, and I was just, and it kind of scared me. I was, in third grade, and I was just like, wow, I mean, this is crazy. I think I read that book a couple different times. And after that, I was always in the library looking up for ghost stories or, this type of thing. Back when I was growing up, there wasn't really anything like paranormal books or, it was basically just ghost stories and people write about this or that and haunted locations and, but there was no focus on it. There was no spotlight, like there is now, and so I just kind of always liked to be in the library at school and kind of a nerd. And, um,
Same.
when I got older, I got into metal music, and when I was in high school and this and that, it kind of took away from that whole aspect. But I saw my first full body apparition when I was 16, and I wasn't afraid, and I was more annoyed that this spirit woke me up, and so I dealt with doors closing, doors locking, footsteps, shadows, the whole 9 yards, which it was more of a, okay, that's kind of cool. It was more of a fascination than anything else. It wasn't something that I would get scared of. But when I would have friends in high school that would sleep over, and hang out with me in my room, because my room was big enough where I had two single beds in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a couple of my friends that experienced some of the paranormal there back then in the 80s, they they didn't want to stay there anymore. They didn't want to come over to my house. They didn't. I had one of my friends here heard an audible laugh, a female laugh behind us. And when I was making a joke about something, he thought it was me. And I said, it wasn't me who was laughing. And he trucked his ass outside that back door so fast. And it was kind of funny. And I still joke about it to him to this day. He lives down the street from me. And when I see him, I always tell him, remember that time we were in high school? I don't want to talk about that because he gets freaked out pretty easily. But yeah, so after that, I kind of would experiencing things as I got older and this and that, and it wasn't until after I had my medical issue where I had a stroke in 2013, and I quit drinking, quit doing everything, and then my brain, everything kind of like everything cleared up, and then all of a sudden it was like now I had, I stopped running from it and stopped trying to delude myself with drugs and alcohol or whatnot. And once my gifts just kind of flourished from there. And then I've been doing it for the last, I've been in it for probably the last 10 years, hardcore, more so. And yeah, I've experienced a lot of different things.
I have to say, my first experience, I would say, was scary, but it was because I was really young and the timing of it was just so bad because you remember the movie Chucky?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I think it was the first time I watched Chucky, but I can't remember for sure. But I do remember that the little spirit of the boy that I saw looked like him, and I was terrified because I thought Chucky was in my room. But I remember I was probably like in second or third grade, maybe.
Hmm.
And I was laying in my bed and I remember hearing footsteps and I look up and I see this little pale white,
Hmm.
curly red hair boy. And when I first saw him, it almost looked like he wanted to play, but it was like when we locked eyes, it was like, it was almost like he was scared that I saw him.
Hmm.
And it terrified me. And I remember telling my mom, and she didn't believe me at first, but I do know that we quickly moved out of there after that.
Yeah.
And so,
First experiences can be something, especially if you're not expecting it.
yeah. And but after that, it was like I was constantly having experiences, but I slowly started to get used to it.
Hmm. Yeah, it becomes more normal. And because of the fact that when my gifts started growing, because I had a mentor, um, when I contacted this lady, something kind of led me to talk to this lady. I was on Facebook. I was friends with her and I liked what she was doing and this and that. And I contacted her and I said, I'm looking for somebody to help me with my gifts and everything. And she said that she's a mentor to other people. She teaches classes and stuff like that, da, da, da. And I was like, okay, and when she looked into me and she realized who she was talking to, she said, yeah, I'm not going to be able to have you in any classes. And I said, oh, is there a problem? She said, no. She's like, I want to mentor you personally. She said, you have extensive amount of gifts and you're very protected. And these classes that I offer are kind of remedial and you would be bored very quickly. You already know a lot of the things that you experience. And I was like, well, yeah. And so she did for, I think it was like 6 months. We would talk, a couple times every other week or whatever. And she would, work with different things on things. And it was cool, and we had good rapport, she's kind of like a sister to me. And, um, I haven't talked to her in a while. And then we were talking about getting her on one of my shows and something happened, but, yeah, she's really cool. And I learned a lot from her and I'm still learning. I still do research on my gifts and certain things, so never stops.
How does being a medium influence your approach to paranormal investigations?
The little I know, the better. It helps me to research a little bit internally so that I can find the truth on certain things. So when my camera guide, my friend Josh Hughes, um, has like, he lives close by, so he lives like an hour away. But when he has an investigation and he wants to loop me in, he doesn't tell me that's what he's doing. I usually get messages like a week or a day or sometime before that. I'll get these images, these flashing pictures and this and that, and I'll be like, why am I seeing this? So I would text him and say, are you working on something? And he'd be like, maybe. I'm like, okay. Are you working on something? And he was like, possibly. He would not give me a definite. I said, okay, can you tell me where you're taking me? He said, absolutely not. So he doesn't want to give me any inkling of the research. So if I go there, which I've done a couple different times, he took me to a place where I said, only thing I got was the number in brick on the side of a building with some bushes around it. That's the only thing I got. But I didn't know where he was taking me. So when I met up with him, he drove and we drove to this place, which happened to be an old school, like a middle school. And on the side of the building, this brick building, was a plaque of a date, and it had the bushes around it. Now
Oh,
there was this building that had a fire, so there was half a new building that was built. I don't remember when, it was like the 50s or something, but the other half was like way back in the time, in the early 1900s, I think. And so there were two, when I walked in, and there were two different sections. There was different visual that I would see in my mind's eye of where that break was, of where the new separated the old, because there was still an old part still there. So they basically added on to the old part. And I got different spirits from each side. It was weird, you know, but it was also cool. I mean, I was able to validate, or he was actually able to validate a few things, because we had a couple of the teachers, because it's still an active school, and it was in the off season, and the couple of the teachers wanted to go on this tour, and this walkthrough that I was doing, and there was one instance where I saw a little girl in a yellow dress that was on the end, that was running around on the very end of the hallway. And I walked down there and I said, who is this little girl that is like running around unattended? I knew she wasn't there physically, but I mean, I could see that she was this and that. I said, was there something that happened right in this corner? That's when the teachers were like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. Then they told this whole story of one of the principals saw this little girl and thought she belonged to somebody, and then she disappeared, and it was crazy. So
wow.
that validation, was nice to be able to see that, and that's why I do it. I do it because, like I said, there's some stories that people don't hear or know about, and some of these spirits that are still there, that hang around in different places, just want their story. They just want to be heard, you know, and
Yeah.
that's some of their unfinished business. I don't know.
And can you share how you just, sorry, what's the most compelling evidence you've encountered or captured during an investigation?
Hmm. And there's so many been little things. I would say major things, and it's not even an investigation. Well, it kind of was an investigation. I was in this haunted hotel, and I was in one of the rooms. Um, these It was kind of like a parlor type place, and it connected with one of the hallways behind um, the guest greeter, I should say. And I walked through around this big, huge booth that had really tall. It was antique. It was really tall and like plush, like velvet. It was really cool. And I walked around the side and I saw there was a shadow there. Something was casting a shadow behind it that went all the way into this little small walkway. And I stopped and I saw it, and I stood there and I'm looking at this, probably this shadow, and it comes in and stops and then retreats quickly. Well, if it was a real person, it would have made the floor creak because all the wood around that floor was original. And every time you walk anywhere in that room or in the hallway, you're making a ton of noise because it cracks, it creaks. It's like walking into an old building.
Right.
I did not hear one. I didn't hear any evidence of that, but I had it on video. I had my phone, my camera going, and I caught it. By the time I turned around to show my other investigator, that video had been deleted. Yeah, I had
Wow.
saved it instantly when I turned around and I went to look for it, and it was gone. It was off my phone. It was nowhere to be found. I was just like, so that was weird. That was pretty compelling, you know. Um, there's been I was doing an interview with a friend of mine from Maine, and I had some cat toys in a old uh, like a wine glass, and it was in a basket. It was in the camera frame, so you could see it behind me. And I'm in this hotel, and I'm talking to my friend Adam, and um, I just, happened to ask where was your favorite places to investigate, or that want to go back to, or that you think is one of the most haunted places. And he's listing off all these things, all these places. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. He says, but my favorite place, he said, is the Lizzie Borden house. And as soon as he said that, the cat toys lit up like Christmas trees. And I'm like, okay, could it be vibration? Could it be something else? Could it be, you know what I mean? So when they stopped and we were talking about something else, and I said, you mentioned Lizzie Borden again, they went off. I was like, oh, okay. That's kind of cool. So actually that video is up on my Studio 6 Media page on YouTube with that
Okay.
interview. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to think. I mean, I've heard footsteps. I've heard um,
Do you remember the name of that interview?
that was under Studio 6 Paranormal Podcast. Yep. And that is probably like on the very, if you go to my YouTube channel, Studio 6 Media, you'll kind of look at videos and you'll scroll down and you'll see it's with Adam Began. And yeah, that's a really good video. I also have a video on there where I do a psychic walkthrough, virtual psychic walkthrough with my old team, well, one of my team members from uh, K2 Paranormal Research. I got some mad evidence there, and that was fun. That's on there as well. Um, but as far as other investigations, um, God, there's been a few. Um, and this wasn't an investigation, but I was talking with a friend of mine. He'd actually did my photo op thing for my pictures when I post on my social media sometimes. Um, he's actually a bartender at this hotel, at the apothecary, because there's an apothecary upstairs, and then in the basement there's a speakeasy. I got a really good EVP downstairs. When I went outside and I was investigating, um, I said, I put it on the bar, and I said, excuse me. I put it on the bar, and I said, anybody that wants to say anything or talk, whatever, you can, talk into this. And we went outside, and then like 20 minutes later, we come back, and I'm reviewing the tape, and it said, and the voice said softly, "Where's Susan?" Yeah, and
Oh.
that was really cool. We'll come to find out later on, a couple years later, that there's another spirit that I know that's there, that um, it's Susie, and she's like from Chicago. It's from the 20s or 30s or whatever, and it's just the fact that that whole the air. It's kind of hard to explain. She comes and visits. I mean, that place hasn't always been a hotel. I mean, it has for a long time, but I mean, it's one of the oldest buildings in Wisconsin. It was from 1856. So, I mean, it was a mansion at one point. So, um, but yeah, it was just really, really wild that kind of transpired. But as I was saying before, I was talking with my friend, and he was, the bartender, and he was talking about certain things, and we were just sitting in one of the rooms, and I was kind of getting to know the kind of the law of the land of the place, and one of the spirits kind of said to my ears, just ask him about the story of the people who stole wine. And I said, what? And so I asked him, I said, okay, what's the story about, you had some guests that were stealing wine? And his eyes like bugged out of his head. He was like, "Oh my God, how do you know that?" Because nobody knows that story, but the spirits know that story.
Yeah.
This couple stayed there at this hotel, and they were drunk, and they were looking for more alcohol, and they just happened to wander downstairs in the basement by the where they kept all the alcohol and the wine and stuff, and they were back there taking bottles of wine or booze or whatever, and this guy that I'm talking to caught him and said, "Put it back. I won't say anything. Just go back through your room." And they left it there, and then they went back to the room. Nobody knows that. He didn't tell the owners. He didn't tell other staff. That was his secret. So when the spirit said to me, ask him about the couple that were stealing wine downstairs in the wine area or whatever, and yeah, he was like, how'd you know that? I'm like, she told me. I said, it was one of the ladies of the house that roam here. And she just thought, you know, and I said, did you almost let it slip? And he's, oh my God. He's like, yeah. He's like, I was talking with one of the girls upstairs in the attic, and I told her about it or something, and she let it slip, about I think about the to customers or something. And the owner, I think, was there or something, didn't catch on. And I was like, he's like, oh, I was freaking out. He's like, I thought for sure I was going to get in trouble. I was like, no. And I told him, I said, she's kind of chuckling. She's kind of laughing because you know, let
Oh.
that happen. So yeah, I mean, so there's been some different things with that location. I mean, there's been times where the owners would know that I'm there because the lights will dim as soon as I walk in the building. Yeah. And so, yeah, there's some spirits there that know me and that know, you know, why I'm there. There's one that doesn't really like me. We're like on opposite sides, but he's like the Hat Man.
Mm.
People have seen him.
I've seen them.
Yeah. So, um, there's been times where I've walked in there to talk to the owners just to chit chat or whatever. I'll get him out of the corner of my eye, and I can hear him say, "What are you doing here?"
Hmm.
Type thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, has a spirit ever told you something or shown you something that has been against known history?
Hmm. Oh yeah.
It's-
Um, there was Now I can't say for sure that this is known history, but this is to me, I believe this happened. Um, because of the evidence that I found beforehand. I didn't find the initial story, but I was able to verify the location and um, the surroundings from another person.
Yes.
When it was a dream I had when I was found. I was a female. I was floating face up in a pool or on the bottom of the pool. I had definitely been murdered or I drowned or whatever. But when I looked up through, which was the weirdest thing ever, to look up through somebody else's eyes through water and seeing what appeared to have been like an officer or a cop or somebody, a detective from the 1950s or 40s. That was, I could tell by the clothes because I know clothes, I know antiques, I know all that. And when I saw what was behind him was the building, there was a complete wood structure and had two layers on it. And then behind me was a bunch of trees and bushes. They weren't really tall, but they were kind of, it was weird. So, but I was in this big, weird shaped pool. Now, I, when I woke up, it was surreal, and I was still like, wow, how did that happen? Um, so I think it was a spirit that was kind of connecting to me because of the fact that the person that I was going to interview on my paranormal podcast the next day, um, he had been at that location. Now he had not told me about that location. He never said anything about that location. You know what I mean? So when I got him on the phone before the interview, I got him on the phone, talked to him in person, and said, "Hey, this is what I've had, and does this building or this area, do you know this?" And he sent me a picture of the pool, of the hotel, the two tiers, and the tree and the bushes in the back behind the pool, which are now overgrown. He used to investigate that place when he was younger. So that place is haunted. Now, I did not know that that place even existed. I was just giving him what I saw through the eyes of somebody else drowning in a pool and what I saw. And I knew that there were heart-shaped beds in this place. Well, it used to be an old hotel in Nevada, and it used to there. I think the mafia was involved. It was like a different place for shady people to go, and it was kind of like people would go there to have affairs and this and that, da da da. But this girl, I do believe she was murdered. Now, have I done the research to find out the truth? Not really, because when he sent me that picture, it validated everything that I went through.
Yeah.
The pool, the building, everything. And so I was like, okay, so that happened, but I never followed up on it. There's two stories like that I had picture evidence after the fact. After I had this dream, I had another picture of an old farmhouse that I was somebody else, and I ran out, and there were like what I call back in the day G-men or FBI or whoever back in the 30s, 20s, 30s, whatever it was. And I went out in the back door shooting at him with a snub nose, and I got shot, and I felt pressure all in my chest and my stomach and everywhere. And I didn't feel pain. I just felt severe pressure, like somebody sticking their finger in your chest.
Yeah.
And I fell down and face forward and blacked out. And that's when I woke up. Now, a couple years later, I told somebody about this, but a couple years later, a friend of my friend Josh, who I've done investigations with, said he was working with another person or another group of people that were looking to put together a TV show, whatever. And he said there's a location that an old farmhouse that they want to investigate or they want to purchase because it's on the market, it's cheap and this and that. So I said, yeah, send me a picture. I'd like to see it. It was that house. It was that exact house with the white picket fence, the barns in the back, and the back porch. And so that was validated. I'm like, dude, I know this house. And I told him to dream. He was like, holy crap. And I know where it's at. It's in Louisville, Illinois, and it's not too far from me.
I had a crazy experience with the house in a dream. I actually I'm sorry, my kids are trying to interrupt again. Uh, 1 second.
Yeah.
Go to the room, please. I'm into my work call. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Um anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah. I had a dream about uh what it was is I was me and my fiance, we were trying to buy a house. And we bought this house, and I just remember like the interior was like just old, like back in the day old.
Mm-hmm.
And these beautiful steps that was like this,
Mm-hmm.
that right in the middle as soon as you walk in, and then these tall windows with long red velvet curtains, and there was a balcony in the front. But there was, and I would see this man and this woman in the bedroom, and then I would see other people, African American people walking around in the yard.
Sounds like you're talking about a plantation.
And it turns out, my husband had my fiance husband, I call him everything.
Mm-hmm.
uh, he had started a new job, and I was taking him to work, and we drove past this house, and we were looking for houses to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's only like 5-10 minutes down the road from where I live now. It was,
Mm-hmm.
that we'll get into in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
We go to look at it, called the number to check it out. And we look at it, and it's the exact house. It's the floors, the stairs, the color of the stairs, everything that I saw in my dream is the exact house.
So did you buy
No.
it?
I asked and it was a plantation, so it's
Mm-hmm.
actually was in like the history of North Carolina and stuff. Um, but I went back home, asked my spirit guides, am I going to get this house? We're talking to the banks and everything, and my spirit guides, they're like, yes and no. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? They're just like, yeah, no, they're not telling me anything else. So 2 days later, I'm taking him to work again because he works only as a home during the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Taking him to work again. I'm driving back home, and I look over, and the house is on fire.
No.
Yeah. So I quickly pull up, and I'm like, well, I gotta get something. So I got this right here from the house.
Okay.
And so I guess I do kind of have the house, and I
Right.
don't.
Right. Did they say what caused the fire?
I think it was people intentionally trying to burn it down.
Really?
Yes, so when we looked at the house, there was parts of the house and the shed had been burnt down from people coming up there and not liking the history. And
Right. 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 That's kind of the running the gamut, that, you know what I mean? I mean, you run into that, especially with plantation houses and whatnot. It's part of history. It is what it is. I mean, it's not, there may have been some, terrible things that happened there, and I understand that. But the things, that doesn't mean that there can't be a loving family or somebody there that, could appreciate for what it was. But But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that emotional, that negative emotional going around in the South and even in the colonies, for some old plantation houses because that's just the way it is now, you know. But as
And
sad as it is,
there was
um,
also a graveyard where the original owners and stuff had died at,
really.
right across the street. So like, yeah, the graveyard's here and the house is like right here.
So what's there now?
They tore it down. Well, it was they tore what was left of it down, and now it's just and
Really?
grass and dirt.
Mm, wow. That
And
that would probably be a great place to investigate.
I thought about it, but I was like, if I pull up here, will the people that we were going to buy it from like call the cops on me? I
Well, I mean, do they still own the land?
have no idea.
You know, it might be okay to maybe contact them, say, did you purchase the land or do you still own the land or whatever? For historical reasons, I would just kind of like to investigate the land and, what was left here and this and that, and never know. Maybe, somebody can let you do that.
It was beautiful.
Hmm.
And have you ever investigated a historical location and connected with spirits from that era?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The hotel. Oh yeah. I got, spirits that used to roam in that building. Um, there was a place that I investigated with my friend Josh, and it was an under remodel, and it was in an older town, and it was a brick building, and it used to be a hotel way back in the 1920s, I think, and it was a two-story building, and so a lot of the second floor was there were just like beams because a lot of the walls were gone and this and that. So you could walk through the beams and, certain rooms and this and that. And so, I was taken to the end of, on the back side of the building, and I was standing in front of an old window and it had the original window and original windowsill and this and that. And I had pictured, or I had seen in my mind's eye, I'd seen kind of the way the room looked. And there was a gentleman that was kind of standing there, but he was like an officer. He was some type of police officer or something like that. And I got this thing where he was really in despair and this and that, da da da. And he ended up running through the back window or back door and jumped off the building. And he didn't die right away, but he eventually did. Well, come to find out afterwards, and I didn't understand why, my buddy Josh had said that I said I said that he kind of did something terrible or something caught up with him or something. Well, yeah, well, come to find out that he was kind of like a corrupt cop and he did some things that he was ashamed of. And I don't know if I kept seeing a gun. So, I think that there's a gun involved and this and that. And so, yeah, he took his own life and he's still kind of reliving that despair moment. And so, yeah, that was one of the things where it was documented that he was there. So that kind of spirits like that I have ran into a couple different times. I mean, I've been in a location and not to investigate. This was even years before I started really doing anything, but I was still always aware that my gifts would come and go as they would, I was, God, it must have been probably 20 years ago. I was, I was working and I was working in another state and I was working out in the sticks kind of with the warehouse and I, I had to go to lunch and the place that was close by the highway, it was a Wendy's restaurant. And so I'm like, okay, so I go in there, and you know how you have to kind of walk through the loop of, you know, when you got, there's a lot of customers, so it's kind of like a zigzag type thing, you know, when there's bars there, like waiting for a concert ticket, you know,
Yeah.
but you're waiting for food. So I'm standing there waiting. There's a couple people ahead of me, and I'm standing there waiting, and all of a sudden I get pushed, and I'm like, and immediately I saw an old lady, short, angry, irritated, standing behind me. I'm like, gosh, really, lady? I turn around to expecting to see this little old lady physically standing there, going to say something to me, and I turn around and there's nobody there.
Oh.
And at Wendy's, come to find out, there used to be an old farmhouse on that spot. So evidently, I was standing in somebody's kitchen. That's the
Oh.
only thing I could gather.
Yeah, well, you were in her way. She told you to go to
Right, right,
move.
right. So yeah, that was bizarre. And it can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've been touched, shoved, whatever, you know,
Tell us
flicked.
about tell us about Shadows Behind History.
Well, it has a I've kind of changed the premises a little bit more, and it's got a different name now. It's called The Battle of Gettysburg, Whispers in the Wheat. And I'm moving it over to Kickstarter. And yeah, I'm finishing finalizing all the things that I need to do with the video promo for that, and you know, letting people know what I'm going to do with that. And so yeah, it's just taken me a while to get everything, because I had to get some video footage, and I'm still waiting for an interview, for somebody to send me an interview, and so I can use that as part of my promo. And I got videos and pictures of Gettysburg that I'm going to feature. And so yeah, so it's something that's a slow rolling thing, but it's coming along. And when I get the final link to it, I'll send it to you. You post it wherever you want to post it.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so it's something that I want to be able to reach out to people that have lived there, that have ancestors there, that have not only had tragedy, but there's also been stories of hope and stories of uh, you know, rejuvenation, you know, and healing and love and all that aspect of it. And there's the other part of it where I would like to help as many as I can, soldiers that are in the battlefield that are stuck in loops, and people have passed that, you know, don't know they've passed, and you know, or interact with some of the ones that can tell a story that need to be told. You know, there's so many different aspects of that town, you know, and I know a lot of it has gotten commercialized, and it's a lot of it's a big tourist town type thing now, but I want to try to get underneath that layer of the truth, you know, and find the stories in some of the buildings that aren't really talked about, that do have great stories, so people can know the real history of it. You know, it's not just about the Civil War. It's not about the North and the South. It's about the humanity of people at odds trying to, you know, achieve a goal, and for whatever side that they were trying to achieve, or whatever it was, and it was politics, or was a, you know, about slavery, or what. I mean, I think it encompasses so many different ideas for that. And I kind of want to get to the bottom of it. I kind of want to be able to, you know, not really pick which side is which, but I want to be able to be that mediator in the middle, and say, okay, guys, let's talk about this. What happened here? You know, why did this happen? Or talk to families and say, why did this happen to you? What came out of this? Was it a good story? I mean, you know, are there still hurt feelings over certain things? I mean, so it can go to different aspects, you know. I don't want it to be just a standard documentary. I want to be able to tell stories that people don't know. and they could say, holy cow, I didn't know that, but it fits with history.
And where do you see all your projects going in the next 5 years?
I just see them kind of falling in line once I get certain ones done, from the first one to the fifth one. I mean, I want to be able to get better at what I'm doing. It's taken me 5, 6 years to be a halfway decent podcaster. Am I the best? No, but I mean, I've been through so many different things podcasting. I could tell you exactly what goes wrong and what to expect and how to handle it and what equipment you should avoid to what equipment you should use. I mean, a lot of it with podcasting is trial and error. And I think that me doing documentaries and, working with the paranormal and my gifts, it's a lot of it is still trial and error. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be like, that doesn't work. I need to find something that does work. And that's kind of why I have, multiple podcasts, just because of the fact that I like to talk to people.
I
I like to
completely
talk
agree.
to different people. I like to talk to musicians. I like to talk to actors. I like to talk to people, older people, who, the elderly, who have great stories of the past. Oh yeah. I mean, if I could go to an old folks home, I could probably get half a documentary just in the stories that I could just hear, you know? So yeah, but it's all about history. I love history. And when I was in high school, I didn't really care for history too much, but I appreciated it. It wasn't until later that I was just like, wow, this is really cool. Because once I got into the paranormal more so, and I started to research that history aspect of it, they kind of go hand in hand, you
Yeah.
know? So
And if you have any advice to any upcoming paranormal investigators, what would you give them?
the first thing that I would tell them as an investigator in the paranormal, you have to have pure intentions of what you're doing. And there's a list for that. Number one, this isn't, oh, if you're looking for jump scares, you're in the wrong business. Go to a haunted house that's been paid, that you have to pay a ticket for. That's a jump scare. Number one, your intention has to be true. Number two, if you are truly into the research and finding out what happened with a certain place or for a certain person, do your research. Number three, don't listen to what everybody else says about the paranormal, because there's so many different people out there in the paranormal field that are telling you one thing to do another. And you have to follow what is in here in your heart. You have to follow where your heart guides you. If you want to truly be a paranormal investigator, your intention has to be true. And I tell people this: when you go to a location, when you go to a location, I tell people this: when you go to a location, say thank you before you enter a building and or enter a house. Say, I'm thankful that you are allowing me into your home. I'm just here to document evidence. I'm just here to do this, and you're kind of spewing out all your intentions.
Yep.
And you have to look at it as in, if the shoe was on the other foot, if somebody was coming into your house, what would you want them to do? Would you want them to start demanding things? Would you want them to start swearing everywhere? Would you want them to, act like a madman, or whatever? You know what I mean? So you have to kind of look at it in a lot of different angles, and a lot of it has to do with respect. Respect the dead.
Mhm.
These people these spirits were once people. They were humans. You know what I mean? So stick with the good intentions, do your research. Don't be disrespectful. Don't try to call out spirits and don't demand anything, because that's only thing that's going to do is is either A, irritate a spirit, or B, not have that spirit talk to you at all. You know
Right.
what I mean? You have to show that respect the location, the spirits that are there, and whatnot. It's a lot of, so you see that a lot on some of these paranormal TV shows. Some of these investigators, something happens and they say, "Thank you for doing that." That is a real thing. You know, what is also a real thing is that you get that comment of, "Can you do that again? Can you do that again? Can you do that?" Okay. After the third time, give it up. How many of those knocks are you going to want before you get satisfied?
Right.
You know what I mean? If they knock and then you just to double check, say, "Can you do it again?" You get the same, that should be enough. Be like, "Okay, thank you for that." Instead of asking 5 or 6 times just because you want to hear that knock. You know, that goes back to your intentions. What is your intention? Why do that way? You're all you're doing is just getting that cheap thrill of hearing the knock 6 or 7 times because of the fact that you asked them to do it. You know what I mean? And it just be better. There's so much more just than hearing knocks or whatever. If you want to research, do your research. If you want to research, and when you first start being a paranormal investigator, kind of research what not to do. You know, research what you should do and how to be respectful at locations. You know,
And where can people find you at?
they can find me anywhere you get media, which is Instagram. You can find Studio Six Media on Instagram, Jay Hill on Instagram, Paranormal Diners on Instagram, as well as um, TikTok. Studio Six Media is on TikTok. I have a bunch of shows and posters on there. Facebook, jd.hill. Um, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at. I mean, you can find me on YouTube channel, Studio Six Media, as well.
And if you
We have a
want,
bunch of great episodes on there.
I can collaborate the podcast so they could subscribe to you too straight from the video.
That would be great. That'd be great.
And
Yeah.
I will have all your links in the description below. Jay, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your incredible work. It's clear you're driven by a genuine passion to give a voice to the forgotten and shine light on the shadows of history. To our listeners, if you want to support Jay's documentary, Shadow Behind History, or check out his podcasts through Studio Six Media. We'll have all the links in our show notes. These are exactly the kinds of stories that need to be preserved and shared, Jay. We can't wait to see the documentary come to life. Thanks again for being here and keep uncovering those hidden stories. Until next time, this is Haunting Travels and keep exploring the unknown.
Thank you.
Thank you.